What if I told you that a dog you adopted yesterday knows a secret that is 3 years old? What if that secret was buried 5 feet underground in the middle of a forest, 1,000 miles away from your home? And what if that dog was not just sniffing for food, but sniffing for a ghost? This is the story of how a rescue puppy led my family to a miracle we never saw coming. A miracle that had fur, 4 paws, and a collar we had already said goodbye to forever. My name is Mark, and I am a skeptic by nature. I believe in science. I believe in logic. I believe that when something is gone, you move on. 3 years ago, my family learned that lesson the hard way. We lost our cat, Milo. He was a tabby with stripes like a tiger and a meow that sounded like a rusty door hinge. We loved that cat like a son. We took Milo on a camping trip to the Redwood National Forest. It was supposed to be a dream vacation. It turned into our worst nightmare. Milo got spooked by a deer. He bolted into the thick brush, and he simply vanished. We stayed for 2 weeks. We put up posters. We walked miles every day, calling his name until our throats were raw. Nothing. The forest just swallowed him up. We returned home with an empty carrier and heavy hearts. We eventually adopted a new puppy, a golden retriever mix we named Beau. Beau was chaotic, clumsy, and full of slobbery kisses. He healed a part of our hearts, but the scar of losing Milo never fully faded. We never talked about Milo. It was too painful. We just assumed he was gone forever. Until last Tuesday. Last week, my wife and I decided it was time for a family road trip. We wanted to create new memories. We packed up our car, loaded Beau into the back seat, and hit the highway. We didn't have a specific destination in mind. We just drove. But looking back now, I think something else was driving us. Something invisible. On the 3rd day of our drive, we stopped for gas in a tiny town we had never heard of. It was a dusty place with one diner and a lot of pine trees. Beau started acting strange the moment we got out of the car. He didn't sniff the fire hydrant. He didn't beg for a treat. He just stood there. His ears were perked forward, and his nose was twitching like crazy. Then, he started to pull. Hard. He lunged toward a narrow dirt path that led away from the gas station and into the dense woods. I tried to pull him back, but Beau is a strong dog. He whined and dug his paws into the gravel. It was not a playful whine. It was desperate. It was urgent. My wife laughed and said he probably smelled a squirrel, but I knew better. I looked into Beau's eyes, and I saw something I had never seen before. Focus. Pure, unshakable focus. So, against my better judgment, I let him lead. I clipped the leash to my belt and followed him into the forest. The path was dark and twisted. Branches scraped our faces. The sunlight disappeared behind a canopy of thick leaves. We walked for 45 minutes. I was getting annoyed. I had a schedule to keep, and this was wasting time. I was about to turn back when Beau stopped dead in his tracks. We were standing in a small clearing. A circle of mossy rocks surrounded a patch of dirt. It looked like a campsite from years ago, overgrown, forgotten. Beau started digging. He dug like his life depended on it. Dirt flew between his legs. His nails scraped against roots and stones. I shouted for him to stop. He ignored me completely. I grabbed his harness to yank him away, but he snarled. It was a soft snarl, but it was a warning. He had never snarled at me before. I stepped back, shocked, and then his paw hit something solid. It made a hollow thunk sound. My heart stopped. Beau stepped aside, panting heavily, and looked at me with those big brown eyes. He looked proud. He looked like he had just finished a mission. I knelt down in the dirt, and I reached into the hole. My fingers brushed against cold metal. I grabbed it and pulled it out. It was a small, rusted tin container. A mint tin, covered in mud and moss. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, there were no mints. There was a photo. A faded, water-stained photo of me. I almost passed out. That photo was from 3 years ago. It was a family portrait we had taken at the campground. How did a photo of us end up buried in a tin in a random forest 1,000 miles away from where we lost him? This was impossible. This was terrifying. And it was just the beginning. At the bottom of the tin, I found a piece of chewed fabric. It was green and frayed. I recognized it instantly. It was a piece of Milo's old collar. I had thrown that collar away years ago. I knew I had thrown it away. I put the trash out myself. So why was it here? A cold shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't scared of the forest anymore. I was scared of time itself. I looked at Beau. He was whining again, but this time he was looking deeper into the woods. He wasn't done leading me. We walked for another hour. The light was starting to fade, and panic began to set in. My wife was calling my phone, but there was no signal. We were lost, completely lost. I was just about to sit down and cry out of frustration when I heard it. A sound that made me question my own sanity. A rustle. It came from behind a massive fallen log. Beau wagged his tail, but he didn't bark. He just sat down respectfully. Then I saw a shadow. It moved slowly, limping slightly. A pair of glowing green eyes appeared in the twilight. And then, a sound. A rusty door hinge. That meow. I knew that meow. I knew it better than my own name. Milo walked out from behind the log. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, I saw 3 tiny kittens. They were small, scruffy, and scared. They were the spitting image of Milo when he was young. Milo looked at me. He looked at Beau, and he just sat down, as if he was waiting for us. He was thin. His fur was matted. But he was alive. He was alive, and he had a family. A new family. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe my eyes. But there he was. The cat we had mourned for 3 years. The cat we had buried in our hearts. He was right in front of me. I fell to my knees in the damp leaves. I didn't care about the mud or the bugs. I just stared at Milo. He slowly limped over to me. He looked at my face for a long time. I thought he wouldn't remember me. I thought 3 years was too long for a cat's memory. But then he sniffed my hand. He rubbed his cheek against my knuckles, and he started to purr. It was a scratchy, broken purr, but it was the most beautiful sound in the world. Tears poured down my face. I scooped him up in my arms. He felt so fragile, so light. I realized he was protecting the kittens. The forest was dangerous. There were coyotes, bears, and harsh winters. Milo had survived all of it. And not only that, he had become a guardian. He had taken care of these little orphans like they were his own. I looked over at Beau. My beautiful, crazy, stubborn Beau was just sitting there with a gentle smile on his face. He looked at Milo, then at the kittens, and he gave a soft, quiet bark. It was a bark of approval. It was a bark of friendship. I hugged Beau so tightly. I whispered thank you into his fur over and over again. He had smelled Milo's scent on that old photo. He had remembered it from the house. He had tracked it over 1,000 miles of highway and through miles of dense forest just to bring us back together. It was not a coincidence we stopped at that gas station. It was fate. It was destiny. It was a miracle. But the twist was far more shocking. When we finally found our way out of the forest and back to civilization, we took Milo and the kittens to a local vet. We wanted to check his microchip to prove it was really him. The vet scanned him, and the number came back. It was him. But the vet looked confused. He checked the computer and asked me a question I will never forget. "Sir, are you aware that this cat was registered at a shelter about 50 miles from here, only 6 months ago?" I was stunned. I looked at Milo, confused. If he was living in the forest with kittens, how did he get to a shelter? The vet smiled and explained. The kittens weren't his biological children. They were babies from a litter that had been abandoned at that same shelter. Milo, our cat, had been caught in a trap by a rescue team 6 months ago. They took him to the shelter, but instead of staying in the warm building, Milo escaped. He broke out of his cage. But here's the wild part. He didn't run away to be free. He ran back into the forest to save those kittens. He had found them stuck in a drain pipe near the forest edge. Milo, our scrawny house cat, had turned himself into a wild hero. He broke out of a safe, warm shelter just to go back into the freezing cold to rescue babies that weren't even his. That is true love. That is selflessness. Today, Milo is sitting in my living room. He is fat, happy, and sleeping on my favorite couch. The 3 kittens are growing up beside Beau. They are one big, chaotic, furry family. Beau and Milo are inseparable now. They sleep together in the same dog bed. They eat together. They are best friends. I look at Beau, and I realize he wasn't just a new dog we adopted. He was a search party. He was a messenger. He brought back a piece of our past that we thought was gone forever. And he did it without a map, without a phone, and without a single word. He did it with his nose, his heart, and his loyalty. I used to think animals were just pets. I was wrong. They are guardians. They are healers. They are the ones who find us when we are lost. And sometimes, they lead us back to the ones we lost long ago. So here is the lesson, my friends. Never lose hope. Never stop believing. The universe has a strange way of returning things to us. It might take a year. It might take 3 years. It might take a brand new puppy and a long road trip. But when the time is right, the scent will lead you home. All you have to do is follow the trail. If this story made you feel something, if it gave you goosebumps, or if it made you hug your pet a little tighter, then I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Not because I ask you to, but because Beau and Milo deserve it. And if you want to see more incredible stories about the secret lives of dogs and cats, make sure to subscribe to Dog and Cat Universe Hub. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a miracle. And finally, tell me in the comments, have you ever had a pet find something you lost? I want to hear your stories. Share them below. Let's create a community of believers. I'll see you in the next video. This is Mark, signing off. Remember, your pet is never really lost. They're just waiting to be found.